Good morning. I'm David Plazas, the Opinion Engagement Editor for the Tennessean. We're here with the Tennessean Editorial Board, our President and Publisher, Laura Hollingsworth, and our News Director, Maria DeVarine. We have the pleasure of having Linda Eskind Rebrovick, who is a candidate for mayor of Nashville, and who will be speaking to us about her campaign, her ideas, what she's learned. And this is essentially an open conversation, nothing scripted. It's just an opportunity to really go deeply into the issues that you've brought up. And you've been on television quite a bit for the last several weeks. Several
turning
months.
into a pro, huh?
That's right. The one issue that you continuously talk about at debates is a smarter Nashville.
Yes.
For those who are just getting engaged with this campaign, could you specifically get into what does that mean? What does that look like?
Okay, I'm happy to. I'm excited that the message is really resonating with citizens of Nashville. They understand about how we can be smarter. But I'd love to put it into perspective because I think one of the misnomers is it's all about technology. And yes, it is about technology, but it's about combining technology with ideas to make sure that government works more efficiently and effectively. It is truly about being smarter with our money. And if you look at the growth in urban cities, David, it's unbelievable. You know, we have 54% of the population already in our urban centers, but over the next 35 years, that's going to grow in the billions. And so think about that. We in our cities are consuming probably 60 to 70% of energy. And so we have to be focused on how we're going to be smarter about that and how we're going to not spend so much money on it. So I have talked about a technology called sensor technology. And think about putting sensor technology in our metro buildings. In Dallas, they've already seen that they're going to save over 15%, which is $27 million over 10 years, in addition to the economic impact is over $50 million. We can do that in Nashville right now. These sensors literally turn lights on and off based on human movement. Same thing in our street lights. In Kansas City, they're doing a project to put sensors in the street lights. You know, they're talking about significant savings, over 80% savings in energy costs. So as I talked about in my last editorial board with you, there's a sense of a smart grid, as Frank called it, but basically it's really about all those sensors in our buildings, in our parking spaces, that find parking spaces that are reducing CO2 emissions and driver frustration finding a parking spot. But this is about a system-wide smarter Nashville. It's about putting this kind of cheaper technology into buildings, parking spots, street lights, irrigation. You conserve water. All of this adds up to millions and millions of savings that we can then take that cost saving and put it into the investments that we need to make in the city, which are education, transportation, infrastructure, quality of life. And so this is all about being smart about how we use the money, making sure that we are being system-wide and very, bringing smart growth, but being very particular about reducing those costs, eliminating waste, and then being smart about reinvesting it for growth.
Very good.
Linda,
I can go deeper in any of this.
Get that, but in your vision or in your plan, for example, to have those millions of dollars to reinvest, how long would that take to put all this together?
Yeah, that's the beauty of this, Laura, is that it's not like we have to go spend millions and $50 or $100 million and wait 2 years to build it. We can pilot this. Any smart project is going to be, let's take the most heavily congested area and let's put those sensors in right now and let's see the impact so we build exactly what is the return that we want to see and do we get it? And so that's why this kind of technology we can test, we can pilot, just like you do in your business, and see in a phase one, are we getting those returns? The same thing with, in addition to doing that with sensors, we could do that with parking spots. Put them in, test it, see what works. That is the beauty of this kind of technology. And then we'll see, we didn't get 15%, we got 30 or we got 10. Then we start to say, okay, then let's go. Let's find the most heavily congested areas. This is where we'll get a return. In these particular areas, we won't. And so again, you're smart about moving forward with our taxpayers' money. But these are things that are immediate. I mean, it's months to put these kind of systems in. We're not talking years. And so that's why, for instance, in my transportation plan, I talk about short-term, mid-term, and long-term, because we need those quick hits. We need to see some real-time impact to reduce traffic time right now. And we can do that while simultaneously midterm projects are about multimodal systems, and that's where I said I will give you a plan in 120 days that work on the back of InMotion and Nashville Next and all the work of the Metro Planning Organization and look at multimodal solutions so that we have input to give into the regional plan, which is obviously our long-term plan. But that's the beauty of this.
So I think that I think you've done a good job in your campaign of explaining what a smarter Nashville looks like as it relates to something as concrete, no pun intended, as traffic.
Yes.
and our traffic issues. Tell me what it looks like. What do you mean a smarter Nashville? As it looks like other things, softer issues perhaps than traffic.
So, again, some of those examples I was talking about, we can predict where water leaks are going to happen by having these kinds of sensor technologies or see it real time. So there's other things in the infrastructure. But I think in the softer area, Frank, we're talking about engaging the citizens with the city. This is about opening everything and being open and inclusive, because I, as a citizen, want to make sure that I know what government's doing with our money. So you can look at cities like Los Angeles that have built citizen dashboards, which give benchmarks on the kind of results that we expect to achieve. And that's going to be real important for my administration, is that all of our Nashvillians know that you're going to see what our goals are, we're going to be open and transparent, you're going to see how we're going to accomplish them, and then, oh, by the way, you're going to track the progress. And so these kinds of dashboards, and again, getting these sensors gives us data, we make better decisions, and that is one of the most important things that I want to do, is open up, be inclusive, make sure that people have ways to report potholes, have ways to communicate with government fast, real time, and then have the ability to see, real time where the money's going.
So one of the things, I think that's a great concept. One of the issues that you often find with dashboards is people get very focused on the needle and not on what really is behind that needle.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, when you talk about openness and transparency, are you talking about the data behind that as well, making it easy? Right now, if you wanted to do a search on the data for metropolitan Nashville, it's hard to find.
You are absolutely. New smartphone apps are pretty easy to navigate through. We should have an app that's that easy to navigate through so that you can see every invoice that's been paid, every project and where it stands, so that you can push a button to say, can I get approval for this development project, rather than coming down to a building to get that done. And again, all of these things are possible because it's being done in other cities and it's being done around the world. There's going to be 88 smart cities that are going to develop around the world. There is actually a template for what a smart city looks like. And so, I researched it to find it, say, how are cities going to handle that growth and what are they doing? And doing it in an affordable way. And it always comes back with smarter technology and smarter innovation and smarter engagement with your citizens. And so that's why I'm excited about that.
You listed a couple sectors of where you would spend the reinvestment.
Mm-hmm.
Have you prioritized those?
Education and transportation and safety continue to be, and obviously I'm assuming economic development keeps going. I'm assuming we are going to continue to grow Nashville in a smart way. I want to make sure that we continue to bring high quality jobs. I'll start there. But what I'm finding is we have a lot of jobs, we don't have the talent to fill it. And so there's a combination of both. We have got to create more training, more development, matching people with jobs, like technology obviously is one I go to a lot because I know it. There's 1,500 jobs right now open and unfulfilled. And Marie, if we had people to fill those jobs with the talent, so we've got to go to education and start internships and apprenticeships. And that's what I'm so excited about the Technology Council's doing with the latest grant that we have from the state, is we're going into the schools and talking to students about there's a great career for you in technology. So and the companies that are in the Nashville Technology Council, 30 of them have said, we will pay for internships right now, apprenticeships, to students in community colleges, students in high school, to take these open jobs. The second thing is certainly about making sure that, so it all starts with education. So it takes us back there. Education is priority, highest priority, one of them. And it really means for me we need to empower the principals and the teachers to do their jobs. I cannot imagine being held to an accountability performance framework and not having the ability to make the decisions that you need to make, which are local to your school. And as I've said, my hat's off to the Office of Innovation that has set up the student-based budgeting this year, which is really pushing some of that authority down to our hard-working principals and teachers. And I want parents of all income levels to have the opportunity to send their children to public school. And I'm going to work very hard to make that happen. I just truly believe that our public schools can be as good as they were when I went to Hillwood High School and graduated. And I recognize that these are the kind of things that have to happen.
And one of the things in making us smarter Nashville is having the workforce in city government who can not only buy into the vision but also execute that vision.
Yeah.
Have you thought about, could you talk a little bit about how do you create that workforce that's aligned to a smarter Nashville so that they will succeed and the citizens in turn will have the services that they need?
Right. Well, just like we do every day in city or in business, you set a vision that everybody aligns behind. And I think it starts with the city team being behind it for sure, but it also means we get the whole community behind that vision. And that to me is why excuse me, the leader of our government, the leader of Metro Nashville has to have experience running an organization of this size, has to know how to bring people together from diverse populations that are decentralized around the city. But those goals will be bought into by the Metro employees, and they will be measured on it, and we will all be held accountable. My plan is, again, as I said, to open up. These are the goals we have, and this is how we're going to get to them, and this is how we need everybody's help. The city belongs to all of us, and the employees, we're there to provide those services, to make sure that we every day think about the citizens as our customers and that we're delivering superior services. But at the same time, we also have to be accountable to results. We've got to be accountable to goals and objectives. And so for me, this is about aligning the whole enterprise, looking at every single one of our 50 departments, doing a top to bottom audit, making sure that everyone has the same goals and objectives, because just like in anything that you do, this is a system-wide business. It's a system-wide government. And so if we aren't working together, then we're not being smarter. And then we're working in silos, and we're running on individual objectives, and we're optimizing our individual objectives, but we're not optimizing what can be done across the whole organization.
You talked about the audit in your commercial as
Yes.
well. Do you have a vision for how you accomplish it and who will do this audit or who might do this audit?
Well, and again, it starts with planning. Immediately I want to get every department together. I want to start doing planning. I want to start understanding where there are opportunities for us to improve. I know that this is what happens. You have to constantly be doing process improvement. If you stop for 10 minutes, you've missed something else that can be done. And so I want to make sure that we are looking for every single opportunity to eliminate where we have duplication or to find ways to do things better using technology. And that's the purpose of that, is to have that done. I feel very comfortable that we've got a team of people that can go through this audit process to make sure that we capture all this information quickly, that we capture it in an automated way. And I'd also like to include all of the Nashville citizens in the process in terms of what they see. Give us ideas of where you see opportunities to save time and save money. How can we make your lives better? And so I said in the commercial or ad that I also want to do that. I want to engage everybody and find a way that they can give us those ideas, but most importantly, prioritize those ideas to make sure that we're focused on those with the highest savings.
If we look at Nashville being a smarter city, what is Nashville doing now that is reflective of what you think Nashville should be doing in the future?
Perfect question, and the answer is CommStat. My hat's off to the police department. If you haven't been to the CommStat meeting, which I'm sure you have, what you will see that they have done is they look at data on what happened last week. Where were any of the issues that they had to deal with last week, robberies, everything. And then they look at it a year ago, and they look at it across each department, and the whole purpose is to see trends, to see predictable situations. That is a perfect example of a smarter Nashville, and I see that is a best practice that several times that I've been police chiefs from other cities are coming to Nashville to see how we're doing this, because it is really leading edge and is really leading us to be smarter and to see, reduced crime in many areas, and leading us to work smarter and leading us to share across the whole police force. So no longer each precinct is making decisions independently. Chief Anderson said one of the greatest benefits is we're working across the system. We're working together to be more efficient and effective.
What's the dumbest example of smarter Nashville today?
Something we can improve.
What's the dumbest
Yes.
thing?
That's being done in Nashville.
All right.
And I don't call anything dumb, but what I would say is there's huge opportunities for us to find where we have multiple information systems to start with. Do we need an information system in every single department? So we're replicating resources, we're replicating hardware, we're replicating... No, I don't think so, but I'm going to evaluate that. There could be a reason we're doing it, but I would throw that out to you as one of the first things that come to my mind as I've gone around and spent a lot of time over the past year looking at what's happening. I see where we have built individual systems in almost every department.
And is there a city that you use as a benchmark for who's smarter, of what smarter Nashville should be?
Well, that's what I'm saying earlier. You can see Dallas is doing a great job in energy efficiency and taking that on. Kansas City's now built a communications infrastructure. They're looking at streetlights and transportation. So I have found, interesting enough, a lot of these cities are not in the United States. They're in Europe and Asia. And we are a global economy. We're a global world. We should bring those ideas and not be afraid to do that. Because Singapore and Santander, Spain, there are cities that are doing a fabulous job putting in place smart cities around the world.
But I was curious why you'd only mentioned domestic cities when you were talking about your examples.
Great example, great question. People relate more to the domestic cities, but I think we've got to be broader thinking now.
Yeah, and with regard to this audit, again, I'd be curious.
Yes.
Again, the hypothetical is, let's say that all your 50 department heads don't measure up to the accountability. At that moment, you have experience as an executive, as a CEO. Would you be prepared to replace all, or work to replace all these department heads and bring in people who would align to that vision?
I think we've got to make the right decisions for people. We owe them the responsibility to understand if they do have the skills, if they can create a plan, if there's development we can offer. And I would treat that just like I would any human resources performance plan, evaluation. The nice thing is going to be we're going to be able to create benchmarks and compare them across the whole city and look for opportunities for people to succeed. I think I have found in my 39 years, people want to be in a place where they're successful. And if we've got them in the wrong job, then the right thing to do for them is to help them find an area where they can be successful, whether it's in government or somewhere else. And so I take that very personally. I care about each individual. I want to make sure that we look at their skills, look at the needs of the job, and get them in the right place. So yes, I will make bold decisions, David. I will do the right thing for our citizens, but I'll also do the right thing for the people that are in the employees.
Pardon me. And do you have anyone in mind that you want to bring into your administration if you're elected?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm not sure that's a fair thing to answer in terms of the fact that we have people in jobs right now. I think our government needs to keep some stability. We are going to have a lot of turnover. We're going to have a new mayor. We're going to have a lot of new people in the council. And so for me, I'm going to try to be very cognizant of finding people that we need to keep in the positions. On the other hand, I want a diverse government. I want to make sure that the face of our government represents the diversity of thought and background in our city, and that we are looking at people that know how to transform and how to change and move to the future. So I'm excited about doing that, bringing in a combination of both.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your assessment of the city's finances, particularly the bond debt? I think
Yes.
Many people thought the vote on the flood wall was a reflection of possibly overspending. And then also along that line, can you also talk about how you would handle the pension debt?
Yes, so, I look at our debt situation right now and I feel like we're in a financially sound place because our economy is growing, our tax base is growing, and we have a good bond rating. So all of those assumptions are critical to my answer to that question. But we always have to be prepared to respond if any of that changes. And so in my administration, Maria, I don't want to increase that debt at all. I think we are at a max ceiling at this point, number one. Number two, that is why I'm talking about these Smarter Nashville initiatives, because I want to go in and find opportunities to save money. And I don't want to do it on the back of asking taxpayers to pay more. I want to hold down property taxes. I want to make sure that we are being smart and we can show them that we have overturned every rock, looked in every possible way, have looked at what other cities are doing, and implementing those kinds of opportunities first. I do believe that there was a lot that went into the flood protection decision, and that could be one of the things that went into it.
Given that you just said you didn't want to increase debt, but yet we have, by some estimates, about $1 billion worth of infrastructure investment that needs to be made, how would you reconcile those two statements?
Right, so let's take transportation. And
I was more thinking sewer and water, the $1 billion that we have, both in terms of what we're required to upgrade and the needs throughout the county in terms of leaky water pipes.
Yes, so I've met with Scott Potter, the Director of Water Services, and he has shown me financially how that money is already accounted for in his plan. So he has the plan, has the financial wherewithal not to raise taxes to move us forward to pay for that. And in fact, my understanding is that they haven't even started the clock on those 10 or 11 years that we've got to meet those regulatory requests, because we are already making progress in it. But we have a plan, we're moving on it already, and financially that's in good shape.
But that would require additional debt. It would require revenue bonds to be able to do that.
And so we've got to pay down some debt if we're going to add more. I mean, I feel strongly that that is how we're going to keep the city moving forward. I also think there's private investment money for transportation. And there's an opportunity for us to move into public-private partnerships and look at how they can fund, build, operate, and maintain. I mean, this is what I have done at IBM. It's what I've done at Dell. We actually would go into an operation and say, let's find a win-win here. Let us procure your IT systems, which you're not an expert in, don't want to be an expert in. You want to be proficient in your applications and how you apply your confidential expertise and intellectual capital. Let us take the infrastructure and pay for that, maintain it, operate it, but let's find a way that we both benefit so that you're eager to see it perform successfully and we're eager to see it perform successfully. I want to look at all of those opportunities to help us fund major high dollar infrastructure, transportation being an example, water sewer being an example. If the private sector can help us, and again, I want to look at that, but I'm looking at them helping build airports in New York, build transportation systems in Mexico, back to around the world. This is a solution that's being done in a very smart way. Now, there's cities that have done it that haven't done it in a smart way, and that's where my expertise comes in. I'm the only candidate that has implemented large-scale infrastructure projects. I'm the only candidate that sat on the other side, being the corporate, if you will, supplier that has to be held to service level agreements. It's had to learn how to make those agreements mutually beneficial for both parties, have understand how important that is, because if we as a city don't apply the right resources to that project, then it's not going to be successful. We need to know how we can both be rewarded. We need to make sure that we have a contract that is tight and or flexible, and those are the kind of things that I bring to the table. From doing it at IBM, learning how to be a contract lawyer basically, approving consulting projects as the partner in charge, making sure that they were sound, making sure that everyone understood their responsibilities, making sure that we had reasonable outcomes and we could measure those. And so I feel very comfortable in that environment.
There are 3 charter amendments on the ballot this year, and I was wondering if you have any opinion or you would reveal what your preference is. I mean, do you prefer a smaller council? Amendment 1 For the readers, we'll lower the council from 40 to 27.
Right.
Amendment 2 will lower that from 40 to 27 and add an additional third term. And then Amendment 3 would require that 40% of the workforce for projects over $100,000 be from Davidson County. What are your positions on those charter amendments?
Well, I'll start with the term limits. I am not in favor of extending the term limits. I think that where government goes wrong in many cases is when we keep people involved too long. I think 8 years is a great number for people to be in the Metro Council, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running for mayor. I want to bring people in with new ideas, fresh perspectives. I think if you have people that have spent a lot of time in a historical position, they see it through one set of lenses, and they don't have the perspective of other people that can bring into government. And so I'm going to vote for 2 term limits, and I think that's why the citizens haven't passed it in Nashville. I think they agree with me. We want people that are coming in, and 8 years is a great opportunity to contribute a significant amount, and let's bring someone else in after that. I can work with the council members either way. I can see great advantages to having 40 because it's a big geographical location. On the other hand, what I want us to talk about and evaluate is how we do more heavy lifting in the committees instead of at the council level. As a board member who's been responsible for governance for HealthStream for 14 years, responsible for governance at KPMG, a $13 billion firm, we figured out ways to put the heavy lifting into the committees where they were productive, where they came to the board, brought recommendations, and where everything moved more swiftly. You didn't get to the board with an idea that hadn't already been vetted, that hadn't already got the recommendation of that committee, and then it goes through. We have way too many things that get to the council and get bogged down and spend hours and days and, taxpayer money. I want to see us be more efficient. So I'm not sure the number is the issue. I think it's the governance that we should look at, and that's my hypothesis on it.
And with Amendment 3, which is the workforce-related amendment?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that appears to me to be a major issue is why in the world would we give more benefits to out-of-state developers than in-state developers? I mean, if that's the case, and we're telling out-of-state developers, well, oh, by the way, you don't have to hire a certain percentage of people from wherever, then we're already putting our own businesses at jeopardy. So that alone would cause me to say we haven't written that amendment like it should be written, which takes care of, doing the right thing for everybody. Everybody needs to be treated equally.
In a world where we're smarter using technology to access information more effectively and efficiently, wouldn't that presuppose that with 40 council members and a smarter Nashville, there just wouldn't be as much need for 40?
One of the most important things about technology is it doesn't replace people. It makes people work smarter. And so I'm not sure those are exactly correlated. What I do think is it fiscally could make a difference if we had 24 versus 40, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to balance the dollars against, is it more important for them to have, they're the voice of their constituents. And given that they're working very hard in their second job, which is being on Metro Council, do we have enough time for them to get to more constituents and to really represent the voice of the people? That's the question, is the cost versus the benefit there, and that's something we need to evaluate. On the other hand, I wouldn't look at technology as the reason not to need 40 people, because what technology is going to do is give us more information so that they can be doing more impactful things like strategy, like looking at, where do we need to go forward, as opposed to a lot of administrative tasks that technology can take off their plate and give them information to make, to do their job better. That's what smart technology does.
Talk to us a little bit about your assessment of what has happened with the school board and the interim director in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, obviously some important policies were bypassed, and that's really unfortunate. I would suggest that our school board engage the Metro Nashville legal contact advisor to guide them more on process, because it's real important that we follow process, legal process.
And then how would you assess what you would like to see in the next superintendent? And what would you do if you were elected to make a smoother transition for somebody coming in after what's just happened?
Well, skills that our superintendent needs to have would certainly be important in terms of leadership, understanding how to help, work closely with our community, experience in public school systems. Of course, I want someone who's very innovative, willing to step out of the box, think about, moving forward, not looking back. So I'm hopeful that we can put that behind us, fix it, move on. I like to analyze what I learn from things that happen, but you can get mired in the past and not move forward. And so for me, it's about moving forward with a new superintendent and a community that's really eager to make sure that we take care of our children. If everybody focuses on the right goals. My leadership style, as I have said, is going to be one of inspecting and managing by wandering around. And so I will be very active with the superintendent. I will work very closely with the superintendent. I will make sure that our goals are aligned and we're speaking from one voice. I want to make sure that we are working closely with the board. But one of the things that's come out of Project Reset, I think I spoke about this before, that is critical where you look at what other cities have done. The other cities that have moved the needle forward in education have brought the whole community together. They haven't sat and waited on the school board. They haven't sat and waited on their public schools. They have said, we are involved. We are engaged. We are going to bring our leadership, our business expertise, our mayor, our city together, and we're going to all come together with a unified approach. And we're going to look at all of our schools and try to find opportunities, or insist on finding opportunities to make sure that that every child has the opportunity. And you do that by taking what's working and expanding across all the schools. I mean, again, this whole student-based budgeting, that's a best practice that's been happening in the charter schools that we haven't had in our public schools. Why not? That's something we just implement. You just do it. I mean, when you find things that are working, the 300 companies that are mentoring in the academies, that is phenomenal. We need to be doing that in all the schools. Why do we just have top floor in one school? Stratford, and then one in Maplewood. Why don't we have that program in every single high school so that we make sure that every child can move ahead in after school?
Why do you think we don't? Just a question.
I
Is
think
that a
it's
leadership issue? Is it?
Well, I think there has been a tendency to step back. And again, listen, I know why it happens. It's easy to happen, easy to understand why it happened, to step back and leave it in the hands of the school board because of the way we govern. And my view, though, is that the school board can't do all this with 9 people. I mean, it's just impossible to think that they should even be asked to do everything on their own. This is a community-wide, and important that we're all pulling together. And so, no, I mean, I understand and applaud the progress that we've made, but we can't accept where we are. We have to move to a point where our children are getting a competitive education, and we are helping them from cradle to career. And I think that's the other point, is we've got to remember and help them, and what the academies are doing, focusing them on a skill while also teaching all the basics of education.
We met last week with candidates for vice mayor, and we asked them to define their role, what they believe the vice mayor will do. Some talked about the whole notion of championing the council, and we also asked them about the relationship with the mayor. How do you see your relationship with the vice mayor if you're elected mayor, and what role should that person play?
Well, it's an important position. It clearly is. The vice mayor does have the responsibility to help make sure the council is effective and efficient. And so, I see the vice mayor as an important part of my team, and I am accountable to the vice mayor, and the vice mayor is accountable to me. And if we work in tandem, then again, we're going to have a much more successful city. And so I'm thrilled that we have excellent candidates. I'm looking forward to working with our vice mayor, and the roles and responsibilities should be linked together. The goals should be linked together, and we should be always, again, like the superintendent, speaking from a common voice, common goals, common expectations.
It's possible, of course, that vice mayor could become an adversary. Let's say hypothetically looking at other cities and so forth, or could try to guide the council to force your hand as mayor on a variety of issues. How would you deal with those issues of conflict, especially on the political scene, which is it's going to be different from the business environment, for example?
No, if there is an adversary because of something I'm doing, then I need to know about it. I'm real open to constructive criticism. I think that's one thing you learn day one at IBM, and your customers tell you if IBM didn't tell me. I believe if an intelligent vice mayor that is looking at something that I'm doing as mayor and doesn't believe it's in the best interest of the city, then we should have that conversation. Absolutely. Now, I'm a very inclusive, consensus-building type leader, and I don't believe I have all the answers. I believe I'm very capable of leading. I'm very capable of getting to the right answers. But if I don't engage people of different viewpoints sitting across the table, then I'm just going to get the same answer that I started with. And so, to me, the example you just gave me is an example where I need to be talking to the vice mayor, obviously, and working out what is the best answer. How did I come to a different answer? What are the assumptions that you made? What are the challenges that you see in what I'm trying to get done? The most important thing that I plan to do is get people involved early in the process so we don't ever get to the adversary point. I know that doesn't always happen.
Yeah,
but
the specific
that's,
examples, for example,
yeah.
the AMP, the
Yes.
police headquarters,
Yes.
the jail.
How
protection
did we
system.
get so far without us knowing before we spent money and a lot of time that these were issues? And once again, I know how that happens. And I will work very hard to try in the beginning of the process to uncover those issues, to get people at the table, to make sure we understand what those potential issues could be before we go too far down the road. And the vice mayor is an excellent voice for the council, because that individual works with them day in, day out, and the council is listening to the constituents. So if you follow that train of thought, we work for the citizens, we work for the Nashvillians, and we need to understand if they see an issue. And then we need to try to work it out together, come to the table and talk about it, not get to the end. And timing is a lot of it. I certainly think right now is not a good time to be bringing forward projects that have a significant cost, because you've got people that are changing. And so the natural reaction is to want to wait until after an election within 60 days. So some of that is timing. But I also want to work on the process. I think it's important.
You mentioned in the first Nash Forward debate that person you admire is Mayor Dean.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about why that is, and what are the qualities that you might emulate, and things that you can learn from both his successes and also his learning points?
Right. He's been a great mayor, and all the satisfaction ratings show that. People are very, very pleased with the growth of our city. You look at what he walked into, which that's the interesting thing. That's leadership, is you've got to be prepared for any crisis, as you spoke about at the first debate. He walked into a recession, he walked into a flood. You can't plan for those things, but you have to be capable of unifying the city, of getting the right people, of having plans ahead of time that will account for those kinds of activities happening. And he truly pulled the best of the city together. No one really came in to help us. He looked at how to move us forward and get through those situations. And those are obviously two of the ones that are pertinent for everybody. Just look at the situation in Nashville right now, as far as restaurants, as far as people moving here. young creative talent moving here, the entrepreneurs that are here, the businesses that are moving here and staying here. That is because we have been very deliberate about being a city that cares about having disposable income, that cares about quality of life, that cares about making sure that we lift all boats, and that we're good regional partners. You know, Mayor Dean has put a mayor's caucus in place. I think that is brilliant. That is a platform to allow us to move forward with regional transportation. Without that, that would be a very hard undertaking. So, you know, those are just a few of the most visible examples. You know, what I hear people say about him is he's great to work with. You know, he's just really a positive individual. He is supportive of his team. He likes to create an environment for people to be successful and then delegate and give them goals and let them do their job. So I like his leadership style. Yeah, I mean, I think you've pointed to is he probably looks back, he probably wishes that those 3 or 4 things didn't happen. And if you take the wins, I always say if you're not taking risk and you're not moving the ball forward enough, then you're not getting failures. And so in balance, unfortunately, I think we could have been a little smarter about him, but the fact that he said we've got to move forward with transportation, everybody's talking about it. So even though we walked away from the plan as it was proposed, it created the momentum that we need now for people to get behind moving now. And that's why I don't want to waste any time. I want to get moving on immediately. I've committed to Steve Bland. It will be a priority. And that I will work to make, if he can help me, we will get that plan out the door by the end of January if I'm elected mayor, when I'm elected mayor.
When you talk about the growth of Nashville, can you talk to us a little bit about how you would tackle the growing concern about affordable housing?
Mm-hmm.
And are there any neighborhoods or communities elsewhere that you would point to say, here's an example that you would like to bring back to Nashville or replicate?
Yes, no, that's exactly what I've been looking for, and that's why I think there's no one silver bullet in my mind. I think this is one of those very challenging but critically important priorities for our city. And so I start with looking at innovation. So look at co-housing. I talk about this a lot. And I think I have children that are 28, and so I went through the process with them. And clearly, the development in Germantown to me represents a wonderful opportunity for our millennial generation. You know, they're coming out of college, or you know, they want to be in social environments. They like being around other millennials or other people, just in that, for that matter. And so these are developments that offer large social areas, living areas, kitchen areas. And so I've been the one pushing this and talking about this, because we have one example right now where, you know, you literally can buy or rent your bedroom or bathroom depending on how you set it up. But these are being done all around the country. And we have one that's proven to be very successful in an area that has, you know, for that generation, places to eat and play and are right there within walking distance. So it's a perfect opportunity to look at each community and determine what works there. Co-housing may not work in another part of our city, but there are places like Germantown where that works really well. And I want to make sure that we continue to grow that kind of innovation. Secondly, we are going to have to build some density into some of our neighborhoods. So once again, I find there are some neighborhoods that are saying we are very open to what's happening in other cities where we have micro housing, where we have micro villages, so where you have smaller, nice homes on a smaller lot closer together. And you can think about maybe 8 homes together in a lot and a shared you know, laundry and other services within a building in the back. These are the kinds of projects that in selected neighborhoods who are open to that kind of density in their neighborhood, we could find nice homes for people. The third thing I want to talk about is the idea that I brought up at the beginning of the campaign is why doesn't Metro look at our unused and underutilized property and make it available to developers for affordable housing? A couple of weeks ago, Mayor Dean announced that, so that's good. I think that's important, and I will continue to do that because it's a perfect example of another way that we can move that forward. And then MDHA. I am very excited about the rental assistance demonstration program. You know, this is huge for our city. It's giving us the opportunity at MDHA to create private financing. You know, the Reimagine Casey project, the Envision Casey project is already a project that is, you know, set for this new kind of funding. This is huge. We can scale using this kind of model. They're going to be able to rebuild the entire public housing environment, add on additional land, create a mixed-use environment, and literally, possibly mixed income. I'm not sure about that, but anything's possible now. When you take a blank sheet of paper and you've got the ability to go borrow private funding and the ability to take care of the people in those homes right now while you're rebuilding over the next 12, 18 months, 2 years, we can do this in every one of our public housing communities. And if you add all those four things up, we can make sure that everyone has a safe home.
And as we continue to look at issues of quality of leadership, you know, we've talked a lot about crisis management. And,
Right.
Could you tell us a little bit about an experience from your own background as a leader that could demonstrate to us and also to the viewers of how you might be an effective mayor? You know, because you talked about Mayor Dean coming with a flood. You know, sometimes you have unexpected situations. Talk a little bit about that. You know, an example in your career where you were able to handle something that was unexpected and able to come to a resolution that was satisfactory.
Well, I've got a lot of those examples. How long have you got? Let me mention one that I think people will relate to, because a lot of my experiences are going to be, you know, KPMG or IBM or Dell, and the one that I mentioned at the first debate was at University of Tennessee, and I think this is a great example that people can relate to. It's one of our prestigious higher education institutions in our state. We had a scenario where, you know, we had a president and a board that were both working hard but not efficiently and effectively, and we hit a crisis where there was fraud and abuse and waste, and the worst part about it was the board had no insight into the fact that was coming. So Governor Bredesen at the time contacted me and said, I want you to go up there with 2 other people, and I want you to look into this, and I want you to figure out how do we fix it. And my background in governance and my background being on the KPMG board, where I got the chance to work with Ira Milstein, who's the internationally renowned governance lawyer. I mean, we literally put in place the proper measures, back to committees, like I was talking about with the Metro Council. We put responsibilities and descriptions and charters around the committees. We put descriptions around transparency so that the CFO of the city had open access and inclusiveness with the board. We put in place a board that worked functionally, policy, so that they had the ability to do their job and provide oversight to the university. You know, that is how I'm going to govern. That is how I respond to a crisis quickly and deal with it, but it's also how I will be proactive in putting in place the kind of solutions that we need to make sure that people can move effectively. And the result of that is it's worked very efficiently since then. I can give you other examples,
Well, I have
but
a
that's...
question. If you think back to your experience at Dell, KPMG, IBM, Consensus Point,
Right.
if your employees were asked at large, I know this is a tough question, but to use what are some of the simple words that they would use to describe your leadership style, do you think?
Good question. Courage.
Courage.
Collaborative. Engaged, involved. Encouraging. I would say driven. Very I like to focus on showing appreciation for people. I really do. But I'm also able to see, as I said earlier, things that need to be done, and I will point those out. And inclusive. You know, I have tried very hard to promote women, promote diversity, promote making sure that everyone has a chance to be successful and move up in organizations. And so, as I said earlier, I want people to be constructive. I want them to bring constructive criticism, and I do the same. You know, I will bring constructive criticism. I will point out things that we can do better. But I'm as hard on myself as I am on others around me. And at the end of the day, David and I were talking about this. You know, I'm about the team winning, about giving people the chance to achieve opportunities that they never thought was possible. And by putting people into positions that they may not be ready for, you allow them to lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg said in her book, give them the opportunity to step up. And that, to me, is the greatest reward. I mean, I learned early on that in IBM, I was in sales, as you know, and I enjoyed being successful there, but what really motivated me was having someone come in to me that I was managing and say thank you. You know, I got a promotion I never thought I could get. I got a bonus I never thought I could get. I've been able to do things that you saw in me that I didn't see in myself. And so I am excited about the opportunity to lead the employees of Metro and provide that kind of leadership at the same time to bring the city to the point where we say, we didn't know we could accomplish that. We really had no idea that we could get to that point. And we did it.
So Nashville's had a good 4 years. Generally, my observation would be that it's in the midst of success that the seeds of failure are often sown. What would be the thing that you would worry about as you come into office with this success in the past that would be the failure you would be on, the seeds you would be on the lookout for? The things that...
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Frank, and I can answer it real quickly. It's making sure that everybody is part of that success. It is real easy for there to be 70%, what is it, always 80% of the people that enjoy the success and 20% that don't, or just the opposite, 20% that are part of that success and 80% that are not. And so my job is to make sure that we understand how to keep everybody involved in that success, how to make sure that every community is successful and livable and accomplishing the goals that they want to accomplish, and trying to find what is, again, there's priorities. Everything can't be done. But for me, it is bringing everyone together and making sure that we continue to communicate well, that we continue to understand the needs, that we continue to engage people, so that the success doesn't appear to be there for everybody, but it really isn't. And that's been made very clear to me through this process. And I listen. I really do listen. I'm an individual that wants to hear what others have to say so that I can take that in and make sure that we are using that information and working together to solve the problem.
So we have about 4 minutes left of our interview, so just any final wrap-up questions or any final thoughts?
Or a statement I want to make?
Something that
Absolutely. You know, I want to leave you and the viewers with a point that says that I'm electable to be the next mayor. And I see that in the comments back from the people that I talk to. I see that back in the polls. I see that back in the fact that my message of Smarter Nashville is resonating with the people of Nashville. I am confident in the fact that the people of Nashville want to elect somebody who's thinking about spending their money wisely. My fiscal responsibility and the ability to bring leadership of a city of this size. You know, I'm the most uniquely qualified candidate because I have led an organization of 1 billion people, because I have been on the board of KPMG, which is a $13 billion business, setting policy and oversight, because I have run a company for 5.5 years as CEO. So I have built a business. I understand what it takes to build a business. I understand how to finance a business. I also know how to run these big projects. There is no other candidate that has that breadth of skills and experience and expertise, which is what Nashville needs right now in our history. I am also the only candidate that spent 39 years in this community in leadership roles on boards, moving it forward. You know, if you look at a runoff, I am a candidate that can win this election, that will do it because I care and because I want to bring the skills to help. And that's why I'm running. That's why I made the decision to leave the business that I was running, because it's important to me to help and bring my skills, my expertise to make sure that Nashville is successful and that we have a smarter Nashville. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to our viewers on Tennessean.com. Thank you so much. Well, every single day this week we'll have a broadcast, and make sure to come back to our site to look at replays, both of Ms. Eskind Rebrovick's video and also the vice mayoral and other mayoral candidates. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.